Cousin Jared, we are back. Had an extra day off here. Just not a lot happening on Monday. Took an extra day off. Now we're back. Let's talk college football. We got 7 games we're going to talk about. 4 of them in the front half of the show. The other 3, plus a baseball playoff game for our loyal Dub Clubbers. Again, if you want to sign up, that link's in the show description. If you want those other plays, we're talking about one of the Tuesday games. We got a bunch of midweek games happening now for college football. So, Cousin Jared, this is the fun time of year where we just get football every day going forward here. We're in the midst of a stretch of, I don't know how many days in a row I've heard at this point it's going to have football. So start with Tuesday football. That's on the after show. Let's recap what happened last week. We'll do the NFL recap tomorrow with Jake, but MLB playoffs, Cousin Jared, 8-2 so far, 38% ROI. We mentioned this, that September just went a little bit wonky this year. It was good last 2 seasons, not good this year. You never know what you're going to get with September, but we are back on a roll in the playoffs. Cousin Jared, most of those picks over on Dub Club. So, I mean, the people know where to go to get the winners.
Simple, right? Yeah. And I mean, as we've seen, just following around with us here, some of the free plays that you've gotten, the total of the days and everything have gone well as well. But to really get all of that benefit, that 38% ROI there, got to be on Dub Club.
Yeah, and week 7 A grade sides, 15-9. Most of those were on Dub Club as well. That's a 21% ROI. Season A grades, back to positive for the season. I have that in there for a couple reasons we'll talk about. Number one, 55 and 53, but positive. Why is that? Because we're taking some dogs. So if you don't see dogs in every show, the A grades are a little bit more tilted to underdogs than favorites. There's typically a little bit more value that just kind of slightly shifts us that direction. So we don't even have to be 52.4% necessarily to make money, which is good. That's about where we are, though. And I mentioned this last week. I really was pleased with how the model landed with regards to the A grade sides, and that came through last week. And I think it's just up and away on the A grade sides here. Doesn't mean they'll win every week, but I think it means in the long run, we're going to start seeing some real good profits there like we did last week. And the money line, it's not a play there. It's a parlay of the day. If you like a money line parlay, been giving out one of those every week. 1 week we have out 2. 4 straight wins, a 17% ROI on the season. Cousin Jared, you're not a big parlay. Are you dabbling in the money line parlay of the day? We won 4 straight. You dip your toe in that water, or you...
Nope.
Stay away from that.
Not once. Barely even kept track of it. I did keep track of it the first few weeks, and I saw we were 0-3. And I was like, this is exactly why 0-3. This is why we do not do parlays, because this is what happens, it feels like, every time with parlays. But now we've run off a streak of 4 straight. So if this is your thing, another reason to be on Dub Club, because you are getting this type of information if you're a big parlay fan. Even though I'm not, that's something that we offer. We know that y'all enjoy it. And so I want to make sure we're giving y'all what y'all want.
And we're trying to do it smart. And I have there in the sheet. You can check out the sheet, all the season records, everything is all on Google Sheets. You can find those links on the website as well at the bottom of it. But you can see that's why after we started 0-3, I put the expected number of wins there. I was tracking that because I was like, I know we're 0-3, but like I can calculate the probability we win based off what the model says. I can calculate, we're trying to find things that are around 50-50, either odds or probability, kind of, we're not trying to hit home runs, but we're not going to play like minus, a minus 500 parlay, right? We're trying to get around even money, around 50-50, and we can track all that. And now it's come back to where it should be. I think we're about where we should be at this point, which is we found some really good value in some of these parlays. You can do parlay smart. It's you got to find the right situation, and we're trying to find those here. So that's been working. And then the totals, because Jared, on the season, the show totals we've been giving out, 5% ROI. I put that bottom. I think it's interesting that all totals. 52.7%. That's kind of neat. Not that you should play every total. That's bonkers. But 52.4% for the model. That's not bad. And what we've tried to do is highlight the ones we like the most on show. A nice little 5% ROI. We'll try to. So they got another total today that we'll throw out there. And we'll throw out some more. We'll start putting out more over on TikTok and Instagram, and I'll tweet those out as well. Some totals. So we'll kind of keep trying to highlight the totals. Good things all around, because Jared.
Yep, all around.
All right. Well, we'll start off here then. Wednesday night, SamHoustonState, NewMexicoState. There was a moment in time when the model was like, hey, SamHoustonState, terrible offense, but maybe their defense is good. And not really. It kind of came back to earth. The model got a little bit juked. We were talking about this earlier. SamHoustonState Air Force has to be the leader in the clubhouse for the most confusing game of the season. Mm-hmm. we nailed the under in that game. And then after that, Air Force was like, oh yeah, we're just going to like put up 40 points on everybody. At Sam Houston team, they gave up 40 points to Houston. So why couldn't Air Force do it? The fact that Air Force only won that game by 10, despite running off like 30-point wins against everybody else after that, kind of weird. SamHoustonState, not a very good team. New Mexico State, a little bit better. New Mexico State has to be eyeing this as another win to potentially get back to a bowl game. We talked about this. Even though they lost that first game, they're not out of it from bowl. Very weak schedule, so they can do it. They just need to keep winning, and this is a very winnable game. SamHoustonState looked competent at home. Away from home, they have not looked like they can do much. We got New Mexico State here, -165, B grade pick. Cousin Jared, tell us more.
Yeah, so you mentioned that Sam Houston State looked a little bit better at home. They had that game against Jacksonville State, which somehow I turned that game off. I thought there's no way that Jacksonville State is driving the length of the field with like 40 seconds left and no timeouts and getting a score. And and they did. And Sam Houston shouldn't have even been ahead in that game, in my opinion. I feel like they were outplayed in that game. Oh my gosh!
They got a couple big play. One big play. I think a turnover led to a short field.
The turnover led to a short field. They failed on a third down, but got a pass interference to bail them out. They got them the ball on the 1 yard line, the 1 yard line, and then they took 4 tries to get into the end zone from the one. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Actually, no, that is here because that Sam Houston State's not good. Like the one bright spot on their schedule was losing to 10 by Air Force in this crazy low scoring game, and then the game that they should have won, but probably shouldn't have won, and still found a way to not win against Jacksonville State. Whereas you look at New Mexico State, and I mean, the loss at the beginning of the season to UMass, that's not good. I'm not going to be able
at
to.
Home.
I'm not going to be able to defend that. But then they looked okay against Liberty. They beat New Mexico, who's an improved team this year. They went out to Hawaii and lost by a field goal. Hawaii is not the best team in the world, but going out to Hawaii is always a tough road trip. And then beat FIU fairly handily at home last week. I just think this is Sam Houston's not good. Back-to-back road trips for Sam Houston on weeknights, going to Liberty last week, going to Las Cruces this week.
Played Liberty fairly well as well. At some point, you wonder how much is left in the tank after the last couple of weeks for them, right?
Yeah. It's just kind of like feel like they've given it their best shot the past couple of weeks, and it keeps coming up short. And so I think you might have another situation like that this week. I think this number is a little short, and of all the B grades on the board, this is definitely one of my favorites. And Diego Pavia, the quarterback for New Mexico State, finally starting to play like we thought that he may when we saw him at the beginning of last season. I think he was the backup. He came in like he needs to be a starter. Went through some ups and downs, but he's definitely looking to be on the up here as of the last few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to recap, like you said, it's going to be tough sledding for Sam Houston. The loss in overtime to Jacksonville State. Not that they should have won the game, but they should have won the game. Like they didn't play well enough to win, but they were in position to win. Playing Liberty really well. At some point, he doesn't just run out of gas. And again, they haven't looked quite as well on the road last week aside, but New Mexico State, again, mentioned it last week here or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember, still eyeing a bowl, still a very weak schedule, 3-3 on the season. And obviously if they miss a bowl game, they're going to look back to the Hawaii game, which I believe they were ahead by like double digits at the half and blew that one. And then the UMass game at home to start the season, the UMass team that's really, really struggled. They're going to look back on those, but they still have it in front of them at this point because home against a Sam Houston team that's, like we said, not very good. At UTEP's not very good. At Louisiana Tech's not very good. Home against Middle Tennessee, not very good. They got to get it by then, though. That's the thing is they got these next 4 games. They got to win 3 of those 4. After that, it's at Western Kentucky. I'm going to mark that as a loss. At Auburn, that's a loss. Home against Jacksonville State, who's looked pretty solid. Not going to be an easy one, but it's in front of them to get back to 6 wins in another bowl game, which would be absolutely monumental for this program. Pavia, as you mentioned, playing better. This is some ugly football, but I think the books are just misrepresenting New Mexico State, misunderstanding them, whatever you want to call this, pricing them because of that UMass loss at the beginning of the season. Nobody really knows what to do with Sam Houston yet, but this feels like a great spot to back a team in New Mexico State that has everything to play for, and hopefully for them at least still a lot to look forward to. Tough back-to-back road trips now.
The last thing I'll say here, the sideline has New Mexico State ranked 105th, has Sam Houston ranked 126th. If there's anything that I've learned from the few years of doing this, it's that when you get down to like the ends of these distributions here for where Sideline thinks of these teams, like there's a big difference between 105 and 126. Just
the gap between 105 and 126 is much larger than the difference between 60 and 80.
Yeah,
or 40 and 60. Yeah.
And you could even go the opposite direction, go to the top. The gap between like 1-2 is a lot bigger, pretty large down to like number 10. And so anyway, Sam Houston's at the end of one of these distributions, and at the ends they get pretty far out there. If they're either really, really good or they're really, really bad.
It's a great point. It holds for a lot of distributions. A lot of things follow that bell curve. We talk about quarterbacks as well, whether it's even college or the NFL, right? We talk about the NFL. The top guys are really good. The bottom guys are really bad. In the middle, it's just a bunch of decent quarterbacks. But you're right. Sam Houston towards the bottom of that on the road. Great spot to back the home team on Wednesday nights. Moving to Saturday, noon Eastern, Georgia Southern and James Madison. Georgia Southern, number one in Pace-splosion. They had been number 2 behind USC, neck and neck. They've slightly overtaken the USC's number 2 now, I believe. Plays fast, good offense, bad defense. James Madison, very run-of-the-mill, slightly better on defense, slightly slower, but the markets are pricing this at 58, which would be barely above average. And I get that James Madison doesn't really want to get this game up and down, but Georgia Southern will. And on top of that, Cousin Jared, I have a really quick and simple analysis for this game. I don't know. I hope I'm not taking the words out of your mouth here, but
okay.
Hear me out on this one. When Georgia Southern has the ball, the offense will have the advantage. When James Madison has the ball, the offense will have the advantage. Offense going to have the advantage all day, because it's not that James Madison offense is good. It's not. But Georgia Southern's defense is worse. And James Madison has a decent defense, but Georgia Southern's offense is pretty good. Offense reigns supreme here. Model says 66 is where this should be priced. We think this can get to the 60s, over 58. Key number, 58 here as well. So this is one of those run, don't walk. Get this now. No need to wait for this to get up to 59, 60, passing a couple of those. 58, 59, both kind of key numbers here. We don't want to let it get through those. Cousin Jared, what are your thoughts?
Obviously, if this number would have been at 59, I would have thought it would have been low. If it gets to like 61 or 62, I'd have been like, okay, you could talk me into that. That might be okay. I have no idea why this is 58. This makes no sense at all. When I look at both of these teams' schedules, kind of some games that I would compare this to is Georgia Southern's last game against Coastal, which if anybody has watched us for any length of time this season, you know that we're down on Coastal. Well, when I say we, I mean the professor and I. The third part of the show seems to be high on Coastal.
He had them on their season over, wasn't he?
Oh, no. I was talking about Sideline, about the ones who are literally here right now. Sideline seems to be high on Coastal for some reason. Yeah. Anyway, Georgia Southern and Coastal game. Coastal, I don't think much of Coastal's offense this season. I don't think they're that good. When Georgia Southern played Coastal, that game got to 66 points. And James Madison, for sure, you can look at some of their games this season and say, hey, those have been lower scoring. But you look at the one faster paced team that they've played, that was Utah State. And that game got to, I'm going to go with 83 points. And so this is just like too low. I feel like throughout my lifetime of being invested in sports, when a slower team plays a faster team, it seems like 3/4 of the time, the faster team is the one that ultimately sets the pace of the game, and it ends up being a quicker tempo. So anyway, I think this is just way too low for the type of game that Georgia Southern seems to always play.
Yeah, and I think there's a reason for that. Most of the time, the faster team has a better offense and a weaker defense, and it's kind of like I said at the start. When that's the case, the slower team can't help but score faster because the other defense just isn't very good. And so it's one of those where it's like you aren't gonna stop after 5 yards and be like, no, 5 yards is plenty good. Like we got to keep this slow. Like they're gonna get their 7-8 yards, right? That sort of thing. And that's what happens. Georgia Southern just gives up bigger plays, and until they face unless they're facing a good defense, and James Madison is good for a group of 5, absolutely. For a group of 5 defense, anything under 100, remember people, 100 is average, lower is fewer points, higher is more points. Lower than 100 for a group of 5 is good. It's just it doesn't compare to how good this Georgia Southern offense is. Even though it's partially pace, as you can see from the efficiency, it's still more efficient with regards to its offense. So over 58, I'm with you. If this was 60, 61, 62, I'd be like, it's probably a little low. But also, when you start getting up there, you start needing not that you need the perfect game to kind of get up into the 70s and 80s, right? But one of those, like, you still need the things to go right, that sort of thing. But 58 is just way too low.
58 with a team like Georgia Southern, you can go, 8-10 minutes in the game without a score, and you could still find a way to get over this number. Whereas you get into the 60s, like it's basically done. Like you don't have a chance at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. That will take us to Troy and Army. A Troy team that we've talked about here lately. The model's just really loving them. Defensively grading out insanely. We talked about JamesMadison's defense being good for a group of 5. Look at Troy's rating. Partially fueled by last week. We had them laying an A grade to lay a bunch of points against Arkansas State. That was never really in doubt. An Arkansas State team that had been looking better on offense and wants to play in a higher scoring game, and Troy just sucked the life out of that offense. That defense is legit. A pretty good offense too. I've got Troy at number 30. They did really let us down. I think it kind of threw us for a little bit of a juke there against Kansas State in Manhattan. We talked about Manhattan's a tough place to play for a lot of teams. I think that kind of threw us off a little bit. And it's as we're always talking, we have to make sure as the season goes along, we don't let those weird weeks define a team, that we understand which ones were weird and that sort of thing. And that was a tough one, obviously, but Troy's looked really good otherwise. Army's not a bad team, but they're not very good either. We've got Troy to go on the road and win this. Minus 195 is an A grade pick. Model says they win 83% of the time. So laying a little bit of some odds here, but a game that Troy should win. And another one, that reason why we love the money lines here, Army can make games weird. You can end up with weird 2-point conversion stuff. Like, Troy could easily just win this game by like 4 or 6 or 2 or who the heck knows what, and they might destroy them. But weird things can happen. We love the money lines. I mentioned this last week, and I just want to mention it again for anybody new or who the message just didn't quite seek in. The reason we love the money lines is we can take 2 favorites, and if one covers the spread and one doesn't, we go 1-1. We've lost money. But if they both win, even though one of them's going low, we can make money. Now, we always have to be careful, right? That doesn't mean they'll both win if one loses, right? That's stuff too. But we have a better chance of that when we get these higher probability games. On the dog side, if we're taking points and, they win both, lose both, that sort of thing, you go 1-1 at minus 110, you lose money. You go 1-1 at plus odds, you make money. The money lines offers a lot of strength here, and that's what we're taking advantage of. Minus 195. Model thinks it should be a lot steeper. Says it should be out. Anything minus 282 or better is an A grade. So lots of good numbers between minus 195 and minus 282 for an A grade on Troy. We love us some Troy here. Cousin Jerry, tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you summed it up well with that last statement. We love Troy here. They've been really good to us so far this season, maybe excluding that first game against Kansas State. When you look at this, when Troy's offense is on the field, evenly matched game, it would seem. When Troy's defense is on the field, advantage Troy. Because as I don't want to say good, as different, like improved as Army's offense is, and I mean that from like a schematic way and everything. I'm sorry that's not going to work against Troy. The type of improvements that you've made, relative to the competition that Army normally plays, has been good. Not going to work against Troy. I mean, I just can't believe that I'm looking at a Troy defense that rates number 82, way up there as far as defenses go in the country. Again, I'm just like shocked that a group of 5 defense is rated that high. Of course, Summerall, the head coach there, used to be one of the defense coordinators at Kentucky. What Kentucky hands that are had on every year is solid defense. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But yeah, to me, this is just Troy has such an advantage on the defensive side of the ball. When you're a group of 5 team, unless you're playing a power 5 team, that's going to get you a lot of wins. When you are just so dominant on one side of the ball, it's just really hard for those smaller teams to overcome that type of thing. So yeah, love me some Troy. And as much as I hate, fading America here, Troy is definitely the right side to be on.
I've got them as the 14th best defense in the country. I mean, they are legit. And I think you saw that with the fact that they held a really good offense at Western Kentucky to 24 points. They held Georgia State on the road to 7. I mean, they've been playing really well lately.
Yeah. And I mean, part of what gives me even more confidence in that is they were almost just as good on defense last year. They were really, really good then. So it's like the second straight year of this defense being lights out.
Yeah, they had a tough game against JamesMadison. We actually got JamesMadison on that one. I believe it was plus odds. And when the game we said was a coin toss, both those teams were good. And then ended up taking the plus odds of JamesMadison, got to win in a tight, low-scoring game. But Army just not at that level. Troy's had a really tough schedule. I think that's the reason the model loves them. I mean, Kansas State, JamesMadison, Western Kentucky, Georgia State. That is a really incredibly tough first four to the season. Like how many Power 5 schools have played schedules that tough? Like even the big schools are getting weaker ones there. And Arkansas State was a drop off last week. That's kind of what Army is here.
And they still have to play. Oh my God, Texas State. That game could be crazy. South Alabama, good team there. Louisiana, good team there. And then we will have the battle of sideline when Troy faces Southern Miss. Who will sideline pick? I will have my popcorn ready. I have no idea.
There's a handful of teams like that the model's definitely on, and we always kind of works more than not, but it's out on a limb on a few of these teams, and definitely Southern Miss is one of them. But just as a comparison, Arkansas State, according to the model, ranks 103rd, Army 97th. So I mean, it's a very similar situation to that one. Army's a little bit better. Model's a little bit bullish on Arkansas State, especially with the quarterback change, but it's not like Army's that much better than Arkansas State. So. Again, a whole lot easier of a competition than those first four games for Troy, minus 195, way too short of a price. And then our last free pick for the day before we head into all the extra picks for our people on Dub Club. Again, remember that sign up link in the show description. Miami, Ohio, and Western Michigan. Because Jared, we talked about the total a little bit on this game. Miami, Ohio, a fascinating team. Last year, we just were under. They weren't even sniffing totals, and we were constantly still getting on the north side of 44-45. Remember, at the end of the year, we were still getting under 45 and a half. Yeah. And I think one game at the end of the year they went over, but I mean, it was like so much money on those unders. Start off this year, their offense starts taking off. They start playing at a faster pace, and we're all like, whoa, what's going on? And Gabbert's playing really well. Lo and behold, the last two games in conference, they've allowed 3 points. Come on, now you're getting into some weaker offense. They've allowed 3 points. It feels like we're starting to see some of the shades of last year's Miami Ohio. Still scoring some points, not quite as much as they were early, but that defense has really sharpened up. And you compare that to Western Michigan, who has the worst defense in the country with the exception of UMass. And when you consider pace, actually worse than UMass because Western Michigan plays fast. I don't know what's going to happen in the total of this game. You could talk me into Western Michigan scores 3 points. Western Michigan plays fast enough, and Miami's gotten this higher scoring games. You could talk me into this game kind of flies over a little bit too. I don't really know because Western Michigan's defense is so bad. What I do feel very confident is Miami Ohio winning this game. This is not a put this money into every Moneyline parlay you do. But if 315 by itself is a little too steep for you, this is a prime candidate to do a little 2-team Moneyline parlay with another pick in this range. Absolutely need this on your card. I don't want to lay points because, again, Miami Ohio sometimes plays these lower scoring games, and I don't know what they're doing this year. They're just kind of all over the map. But I have a lot of faith they can win. Western Michigan just not very good whatsoever. You talked about the bottom part. Western Michigan at the tail of that distribution ranks 129. Not a good football team, Cousin Jared. Not a good football team.
No, and Miami, Ohio, I think it is a good football team because we've seen them score points this year and wins games. And then we go to conference play and it's like, boom, the defense is lights out again. And they're, pitching shutouts right and left. So I just think Miami, Ohio is still slightly undervalued, especially relative to the competition that they play in the MAC. That's really all there is to say about this. I think Miami Ohio is a very good MAC football team. Western Michigan is bad even by MAC standards. On the total, this is something I would keep my eye on. You look how bad this Western Michigan defense is. I think this game has a good chance to go over, but I looked it up, potentially some weather for this game on Saturday. So this is definitely one of those things. If you're like me and lean towards the over, stay updated on the weather and make sure you kind of know what's going on there before you just blindly go out and grab an over in this one.
And that's the key thing to remember, especially as we get to October, November, the weather can start being a little bit rougher. Remember, as we get into snow season, and more in November, of course, snow doesn't really affect the total as much as wind and rain can, but wind is more specifically a problem side to side. So now you got to start looking up stadium directions if you're talking about wind. Wind to your back, doesn't really affect the total that much, mainly because if it's to your back for those 2 quarters, you're really advantaged because the other team can't punt into it. So you're going to get great field position. And then you can just lob it up deep. But you can't pass it. So it just kind of tilts the field, literally. Side-to-side winds wreak havoc on passing games. So that's something to keep in mind. Rain as well. It's a little bit early in the week for us to really know too much about weather. So if you're watching this earlier in the week, keep in mind, we don't really know. We're pretty good about 2-3 days out nowadays about predicting weather. 5-6 days out, it's just really tough. So maybe some weather concerns here, maybe some weather concerns in that Georgia Southern JamesMadison game, but we think that number is so mispriced that we want to get the key number. Even if there is some weather, it shouldn't drop the total down that low. So we just want to make sure we're on the right side of the key number. So these are decisions that you have to make as the weather gets going more weird. Again, Dub Club is the place to be. You can get access to that Discord chat. And these are the types of questions you can ask us. We can give our opinion on, hey, get it now. We see the weather, but it's a key number. Wait on it. It's not a key number, et cetera, et cetera. We can have those discussions on Discord. It's a perfect place for it. So if you're interested in totals and weather as we get in the fall, Dub Club is the place to be for that information. It's also the place to be to get all of the picks that we teased earlier, a baseball pick and 3 A-grade plays, including one on Tuesday Night Football. So if you're watching this here with us earlier in the week, you got some Tuesday action that we're going to talk about in the extended cut study hall, whatever the heck we're calling it, portion of the show. Cousin Jared, parting words before we shift into that segment.
I mean, how can you not be on Dub Club? Less than $1 a day, and you get double the content. And for college football, somehow you are still getting us talking about
the content.
Yes, you are getting us talking about every single game. I don't know how for the second season in a row you have convinced us to cover every single game, but here we are. Less than $1 a day, you get a lot of good stuff during college football season.
And I do feel like we buried the lead a little bit there. Last week we kind of were trying something a little bit different, but Wednesday we are coming back. Yeah. We're not the after show Wednesday won't be structured. It'll be the after show will just be Cousin Jared and I just cleaning the slate. So get excited for that, people. And if you're not with us on Dub Club, sign up. That way Wednesday you can hear our opinions. We were talking about this a little bit before we were still recording. That'll be the place to kind of say, hey, here are all the extra B and C grid picks that I'm looking at. Here's the numbers I'm eating. Because that's where you'll say, hey, I kind of disagree with the model on this one. And we'll talk about that sort of things. We don't want to do the here on show. We have limited picks. We can go ahead and just kind of get the ones we all agree on, but that's where we can kind of say, hey, the model kind of leans this way, but I've seen this and I lean this way. So we'll have some great discussion on the rest of the slate on Wednesday. Dub Club is the place to be. Otherwise, though, we'll have the outro music. If you're with us on the extended cut version on Dub Club, stay with us. We'll be right back in 30 seconds.